You guys have all been in a conversation where it just flowed and it was easy, and you wish you could make that happen more? Well, the second way, verbally, to really get her to contribute to the conversation is what I like to call teaching her how to have a conversation. Why? A lot of women don't know how to have a conversation. Older women, no effing problem. They will talk your ear out. It'll be like a back and forth. It'll be good, right? Younger women, though, not always so good at it. You got to teach them. And once again, it's not their fault. They're used to just having guys come up to 99% of guys come up to them, and they're just trying to impress them. They're barely looking them in the eye. They're just trying to say the right thing, trying to say something funny. And there she's like, oh, another one of those guys. Well, next. So how do you teach her how to have a conversation? I also call this forcing her to contribute equally to the conversation. It's the same thing, because what's a proper conversation, right? You're the man. You're supposed to start it, so you kick the ball to her. You put in some effort. But then she puts in effort back, right? I always say that she should be doing the vast majority of talking in a conversation. Once again, if she's not doing the majority of the talking, you're talking way too much. You've always heard that women love to talk, but if they're not doing that often, if they're not doing the majority of the talking, you're still definitely doing something wrong. And this is where it comes in, right? It's supposed to be an equal give and take. It's supposed to be an equal back and forth. But so many guys never even give her the opportunity to contribute equally to the conversation because they're so busy trying to fill in those silences, like say something next. There's a moment of truth in a conversation. And that moment of truth comes after you start it. It's always your job to start it. You start the conversation. You kick it forward a little bit. And there's maybe a little bit of back and forth. You know, I would say, hey, how's it going? What are you guys up to? My standard opening line. And we'll talk, oh, yeah, you're doing that? Cool. How's that? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, she'll ask me. Oh, me and my friends are just up to this, you know, that. And then there's always a lull, right? There's that first question. There's that, like, opening little back and forth banter you have. And then it reaches a lull in conversation, right? You guys all know what I'm talking about. You guys have all experienced this lull before that comes after that first little topic, has its little exciting and then winds down. That first lull, I call that the moment of truth. Because that's when she's going to know what kind of man you are, right then and there. Right? It's going to be anxious. It's going to feel nervous, especially if you're used to like hate silence and you're used to always filling it in and always like rushing forward to try to say something because you can't handle that awkwardness. Right? Like we've all done that. We've all been there. But if you do that, if you're just so nervous that you have to jump in and rush to fill that silence because you're afraid you're going to lose her, she's going to know right then, oh, just another one of those guys. Just another one of those guys. Moment of truth. So what do you have to do in that situation? How do you teach her how to have a conversation at that moment of truth? You employ a little something that I like to call shame. Yeah, that's right. You make her feel shame. You shame her. Shame is one of the most powerful emotions known to man. We all know this. And in that moment where, you know, it comes to a lull and you're feeling all nervous, you're feeling all that anxiety, oh my God, the conversation's going to die. What you're used to doing in those situations, you're used to putting that shame on yourself. I have to say something. I have to make this happen. I have to keep this going. I have to have the right thing to say. What should I do? You're looking around. What do I say next? What am I supposed to do next? Why? It's not your job. It's both of your job. A conversation is supposed to be a cooperative effort. Why are you putting all the pressure on yourself to do everything? Take her off the pedestal. At that moment of truth right there, when it's very natural to feel that anxiety, to feel that nervousness. Take a deep breath. You're a man, you can take it. I remember she's a girl, she can't. So I put that shame onto her. I put that pressure that I'm feeling, I'm putting on anxiety, I'm handing it over to her. This is yours. I already did my part in the conversation. Now it's your turn. Don't you know how this stuff works? So what I do at that moment of truth, really, really simple, but important, so important. If there's one thing I want you guys to do in conversation tonight, this is it. At that moment of truth, When you're nervous and your first instinct is to look off and say, oh, what do I say next? Look her right in the eye. And just get an expression on your face that says, well, what do you got? I'm listening. I put them on the spot. Silence, dead fucking silence. I want them to feel every single ounce of that anxiety. I can take it. She can't. Well, I'd say 75% of the time, if you hold this, you don't let it faze you, you show that you're okay, what's up with you? She's going to feel that awkwardness. She's going to jump to fill in the conversation. So, what do you, blah, 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 right? When you guys weren't thinking, like when it was just happening, that happened, right? When you're nervous, it doesn't just happen. You have to force it to happen. You've got to stand up to every anxiety in your body that wants to rush in and fill it. Hold your tongue, put your hand on your mouth if that's what it takes. Let her do it. And as soon as she fills it in, so what do you think about it? I immediately get the biggest smile. Like that's my victory right there. I know it's on. Like the second she starts putting an effort to the conversation, I get a big smile, and I try to reward her for it. I touch her. Oh, that's such a good question. That is so sweet of you to ask me. Give her a little hug. Make her feel good about it. Right? Teaching her how to have a conversation. I'll say 75% of the time, 80% of the time, a woman will fill it in that first lull if you give her the space to do it and you don't just talk over her. Doesn't always happen, right? Sometimes the girls just aren't in a good mood. I talk about the 60-40 principle a lot. 60-40 principle, really, really briefly, just simply states that any response you get from another human being, 60% of it has nothing to do with you whatsoever and everything to do with whatever mood they're in. The other 40%, well, yeah, it does have to do with you. But I always say, it's important. That 40% is important. I say, even like they're 60, they have their own issues. If you're carrying your 40% well, you're going to get a majority positive responses. Not everybody. You're always going to have people that are just in a bad mood. It happens. They got their own shit to worry about. It has nothing to do with you. Girls are insecure. They're awkward. They're goofy. They're nerdy. It's not you. But at the same token, if your 40%'s off, well, then you're probably going to get a majority of negative responses. And this gap right here, this moment of truth, it's definitely, the physical is always the biggest, but this gap is a very big piece of that 40% for you.